There are 10 big mistakes new cruisers and even experienced cruisers make when planning and then booking a cruise vacation. We will go through each of them so you can be sure to have a great experience. Stay tuned today on Seymour Seas. As a travel enthusiast, a cruise enthusiast, as well as a travel advisor, I see many people making big mistakes when planning and then booking their cruise. I wanted to go through that list today of my top 10 so that you don't make those same mistakes. Hi, if you're new here, I am Doug and this is Seymour Seas, your cruise tips and planning channel where I hope to help you and your family pick, plan, and enjoy your next cruise vacation. If you do find this video helpful in any way, as always, please do give it that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. It really helps me out and allows the channel to grow. So let's get started. The first big mistake that I see a lot of people doing, and we have all done it, is picking the wrong cruise line for your traveling party. Now, I've made a video about the 4 different segments of the cruise industry and where all the different cruise lines actually sit in the market. So take a look at this video and then come back and watch the mistakes video, or I'll leave another link to it at the end of this one. But there are a few things that you really do need to consider. And the first is who's traveling. Is it you and your family? Do you have children? Is this a multi-generational traveling group? Is it just you and another person, a couple? Or are you going to be possibly traveling solo? Those are very, very important items to consider first when narrowing down the choices for cruise lines. Similar to that, you really want to look at the age of your party. If it's just you and your companion, spouse, partner, you really need to understand what age group you fit into and what would be important to you for that particular age group. Is it multi-generational? So if there are children, adults, grandparents involved, you really need to understand what those different cruise lines are that will cater to each of those demographics. You also want to consider for that age group, are there activities that are going to cater to each of those, similar to rest and relaxation, quiet areas for reading a book, adventurous areas like the water parks and the slides and all of those high energy activities that you can find on various cruise ships. Make sure that you're taking that into consideration as well. So interests, there's a lot of activities as I just mentioned, and you really need to understand what is most important to you. Is it those adventurous activities that I just mentioned? Or possibly, are you a foodie? Do you want the highest level of cuisine as well as a lot of choices of cuisine on a particular cruise? Other people love cruise lines for their entertainment. Is this going to be a loud rock environment? Is it going to be a lot of Broadway shows? Is it going to be a large variety of types of music, from jazz to classical to rock and roll to the dueling pianos like you would find on a Holland America Line ship? So there's lots of things to take into consideration as it relates to the type of activities that you're looking for on board. So this leads me into number 2. Making sure that you're not using price is your number 1 criteria. Now, you need to set a budget. I'm very budget conscious. I understand that everybody has different levels of budgets out there, and make sure that you're being smart about setting that budget. Make sure that you understand for the price that you're getting a great value. What is included in the price of that cruise? How many complimentary dining options are available? Does it throw in Wi-Fi, drink packages, onboard spending. Make sure that you're looking at that when you're evaluating the value of the price of that cruise. Many people will just go for that bottom price and look at the cruise and say, I'm going 7 days on this cruise and I'm going 7 days on this cruise, but not really looking at the total picture and the total value. If the drink package is not thrown in and you like to have a few cocktails or a few glasses of wine at dinner, make sure that you're figuring that in to your total price. Also, are the gratuities included and prepaid? If not, you need to add that on to your budget to really figure out what is included in the price. So not looking at the lowest price necessarily. If you add all things up, the situation might change a little bit and another option might be your best one. You also really want to make sure you take a look at the ship that you've chosen for that particular budget. Many of the older, smaller ships that don't have as many activities or amenities sometimes are much, much cheaper, and that might be absolutely fine for you, but just make sure that you confirm that that low price is on a ship that you will enjoy. So another big mistake that I see people doing is traveling to a destination at the wrong time of the year. Now this happens, and there are various cruise seasons for various destinations. Now, there are pros and cons to each. One of which is if you are traveling within that cruise season, there's going to be lots of different choices, lots of competition, but also a lot of demand. So this might raise prices and it might provide you with the opportunity to have additional promotions available when competition is pretty fierce, but you also need to understand that when you are in the peak season, like July in the Mediterranean, all of those tourist areas in Rome and Greece and all of those areas are going to be absolutely mobbed full of people. It's going to be very, very crowded. This is very much the same in Alaska. When you are in June and July, those are the most popular areas or time frames. So you might want to consider shoulder seasons, which are right when that season is ramping up, maybe in April, May in Alaska, maybe in late August, September in the Med. And you just have to be very, very cognizant on what it's going to look like in those areas. You also, if you want to do the Caribbean, there are choices during the summer, which is typically off season for the Caribbean. So there might be some good prices, especially around August, September, October timeframes, where this is the peak of hurricane season. So there's going to be lots of promotions and discounts during that season. And I live in South Florida. I've done the Caribbean in summer many times, and we have not had anything canceled yet due to a hurricane, knock on wood. But you will find some really good discounts during that time frame, but be advised that that is something to take into consideration when sailing out of season. Another big mistake people make is not fully researching the itinerary. So you really need to understand for that itinerary, is it a tender port? Is it a port where you're going to be docking at a pier? A tender port means that you have to wait in line, get on a tender boat, and they take you to shore. You're anchoring off the coast of that particular island or destination. Now, conversely, if you are at a pier, your ability to get on and off the ship is much more flexible, and it seems that the lines are not as long and it's not as long of a wait to get off the ship. Another thing is you really need to understand the local laws of the destinations for which you're visiting. Now, one of the things that we just experienced in Cozumel going to Mexico is that the cruise line announced several times that vaping and smoking marijuana in public could result in an arrest and 36 hours in jail, which means you're going to miss getting back on the cruise. So any type of vaping or e-cigarettes in Mexico is illegal. Now, another thing that you might not know is that many of the islands in the Caribbean ban the wearing of any camouflage clothing. So camouflage shorts or a shirt or anything like that is banned. In some areas, it is absolutely illegal. So do not bring camouflage clothing to those islands. Wearing camouflage clothing actually represents in many areas as rebels, terrorist groups, so just make sure that you're planning accordingly. You also need to understand the U.S. State Department warnings and restrictions when it comes to various locations. There is a lot of activity going on right now in Haiti and sometimes Jamaica as well. So you really need to understand what those warning levels are and take your own precautions accordingly. One big thing that I see a lot of people making the mistake of is looking at the itinerary and not understanding how many port days they have and how many sea days they have. So if you are port intensive, you've got the drink package, you've got the Wi-Fi package, and you're not going to be on the ship to use them, your value proposition goes down. And then even when you're going to private islands, make sure that you understand if you do have those packages, do those packages roll onto the private island? Most of the time, Royal Caribbean, MSC, I know, allow you to use the drink package, and they have Wi-Fi available on the private islands. Holland America Line and Carnival, however, do not. The drink package does not carry over to the private island, so you're going to be paying out of pocket for those. So make sure you take that into consideration as well. Next up is choosing the wrong stateroom. Now, this is very, very important if you are at all bothered by noise or being in the wrong location. So if you also suffer from motion sickness or seasickness, you really want to be midship and probably in the mid-level deck area. You don't necessarily want to be forward or aft because you're going to feel more movement of the ship. Also, to mitigate noise, you definitely do not want to be above or below any type of public spaces, most definitely not the theater, a nightclub, or the pool area, because they will be doing activities in those areas as well as maintenance to the pool area in the very, very early mornings. And also, you want to make sure that you know how to read the deck plans so that you understand if you're going to be beside a connecting room or a room that might have a sleeper sofa or Pullman beds. That would probably mean a family environment, so you're going to have multiple people in that stateroom next door to you. I do have another video on my channel that describes all of the various choices and how to read the deck plans to make sure that you choose the right stateroom. I'll leave the link to that video at the end of this as well as in the description below. So you guys are watching YouTube. So one of the big mistakes people don't make is ignoring the reviews and the feedback on social media. There are so many different wonderful cruise reviews, cabin reviews, excursion reviews on all platforms on social media. I have many of them here on my YouTube channel. You'll also find many on Cruise Critic. There are fantastic reviews from not only the editors of Cruise Critic, but also passengers. And I like to filter all of those reviews by date. So I have the most recent as well as filtering by location. When looking at excursions, one of the tricks that I do is copy and paste the title of the excursion from the cruise site website and put that into TripAdvisor or Viator so that you can look at other reviews of those cruise ship excursions from an unbiased source. There's also another great site for reviews as What's in Port. It's a website that allows you to understand more about the port and understand whether it's walkable, is it safe, what things are there to do in port that might not be offered directly by the cruise ship. Third-party operators is an absolutely great option, but make sure that you do take a look at the ratings as well as the reviews from any third-party provider. The next mistake I see people making is not budgeting fully for all of the travel related to your cruise. If you are flying to your cruise port, then you really need to understand if you need to make changes. If for whatever reason your flight is delayed or canceled, are there change fees associated with your flights? What are the baggage check charges for your flight? And then just for flying, make sure that you understand, take the first flight of the day, see how many flights there are that day, as well as check the on-time performance of that particular flight. Also, make sure that when you are looking at the pre-cruise hotel, that you understand where that hotel is located. Do they offer a free shuttle to the port, or are you going to have to get a cab or an Uber? If you're driving to the port, what we always try to do is make sure that we understand what the parking rates are for that particular port. Can you find off-site parking that's much cheaper? And then depending on the length of the cruise, we've determined that anything more than a 7-day cruise, we can actually take an Uber to the port, and it makes much more sense than paying for off-site parking. I would also suggest that you factor in a little bit of taxi or Uber costs, Lyft costs, when you are in your pre-cruise or post-cruise hotel. If you are in a port area such as Fort Lauderdale or Miami, that you might want to go and explore the local surroundings. So this leads me into a huge mistake that people make when booking a cruise. They think they can travel the day of the cruise. If you are flying, you definitely want to go at least one day before. You do not want to go very early in the morning, the day of your cruise, even if your flight gets in an hour or so before your check-in time. If you are delayed or canceled, you have a strong probability that you're going to miss your cruise. So just don't do it. I also recommend that you book your airline reservations directly with the airline, and you also have the cruise app loaded on your phone. If you have to make any rebooking or changes, you want to be the one on record for that particular flight, and you want to have the ability to make all adds, moves, and changes for that reservation. If you are driving to the port, make sure that you are building in time for any type of traffic congestion or backups. Understand what time of day that you are heading to the port. Is it a weekday? Is it during morning rush hour? Just understand these and understand and build in contingencies accordingly. One of the biggest mistakes people make when booking their cruise is not including the cruise protection insurance. You absolutely want to add this to your booking, either directly with the cruise line or through your travel advisor or a third party. This insurance not only allows you to cancel the cruise for any reason, and make sure those words are in your policy, for any reason. Now most cruise insurance does cover COVID, where it did not when the pandemic first started. This also includes all medical that you might need in a foreign country. It allows you to be medically evacuated from the ship via the Coast Guard helicopters. We've seen this happen on our cruises a number of times. And the last thing that you want to do is to be stuck in a foreign country without any health insurance coverage because your U.S. health insurance most likely does not extend to foreign countries. This normally also includes trip interruption in case for whatever reason you have a family member that falls ill or something happens at home where you have to cut your trip short and you have to fly back home. It will cover those expenses to a certain amount, so make sure you check your policy. This also includes lost baggage, and if you also miss a cruise port due to weather, there are some cruise insurance packages that do compensate you for missing a cruise port. If you happen to miss the ship and you need to meet back up with the ship, or you have to fly back home, most often than not, these policies also include provisions for that as well. You really want to book your cruise insurance within 14 days of your deposit. If you're doing it at the time of booking with the cruise line, fantastic. If you're doing it with a third party, just make sure that your travel advisor books that normally within 14 days of travel. If you are taking 2 or 3 cruises per year or any other vacations, it might be wise for you to talk to your travel advisor about getting an annual plan. This handles all of your personal trips, your business trips, any type of travel that you do during that year. It's a very smart way to protect yourself for all of the traveling that you might be doing during the year. So now here we are at big mistake number 10. This is about your passport. Make sure that your passport is up to date and it does not expire within 6 months of the end of your travel. If it does, make sure that you update that passport right away. The wait times for renewals are quite lengthy right now, even if you pay the expedited costs. Now for cruises that are closed loop U.S. cruises, which means that you are leaving and coming back to the same U.S. cruise port, you can travel with a government-issued birth certificate and government-issued ID. This means your birth certificate has to be an original birth certificate, not original to when you were born, but original from the state government agency that issues them, and there needs to be a raised seal on them. You can get birth certificates from hospitals, but it does not have the raised seal, and they will not be accepted at the port. So make sure that you are getting this from the official state agency that issues birth certificates, and you can do this with a valid driver's license. I do caution you though, if you are going on a closed loop U.S. cruise and you're going to foreign countries, I do recommend you have your passport based on the fact if you need to get back home, having a passport makes those arrangements much more easily accessible. So there you have it, everybody. That is my top 10 list of biggest mistakes people make when planning, picking, and then booking their next cruise vacation. If you are interested in planning and booking a cruise, please contact me at Seymour Seas Travel. I'll leave that email address in the description below. And I do thank you so much for showing up today. If you found this video helpful or enjoyable in any way, please do give it that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. So thanks so much. And as always, I'll see you again soon.